Will religious nonprofits have to follow the Health and Human Services contraceptive mandate? Jason Calvi reports from the Supreme Court, where a decision is expected by next June. Jason?
Brian, the Obama administration's so-called accommodation for religious nonprofits will be scrutinized. It requires nonprofits who object to sterilization, contraception, or abortion-inducing drugs on their health plans to fill out a 2-page form. The nonprofits say that action would make them violate their faith.
The Supreme Court is combining 7 cases: the Little Sisters of the Poor, Priests for Life, and many others. Matt Bowman represents some of the Christian colleges in the case: Geneva College in Pennsylvania and Southern Nazarene University in Oklahoma.
It makes them provide an insurance plan that is the delivery mechanism for items that they have a deep personal objection to, including items that can destroy human embryos.
Also involved are the Archdiocese of Washington, Catholic Charities, 2 D.C. area Catholic high schools, and the Catholic University of America. In Texas, there's the case of Houston Baptist University.
What the Supreme Court is recognizing is this is a massive federal mandate on conscience that applies across the Christian world.
The law requires women have access to birth control at no extra cost. The ACLU says if the court rules in favor of the employers in these cases, women will lose a benefit guaranteed by law and will literally be paying for their employers' beliefs.
The White House spokesman says their policy balances access to contraception on the one hand and religious freedom on the other. The Supreme Court will hear oral arguments in this case in March, with their final decision expected by the end of the term in June. Brian?
Jason Calvi at the Supreme Court. Thank you. Kristina Arriaga, the executive director with the Becket Fund for Religious Liberty, is here with us. Of course, the Becket Fund represents the Little Sisters of the Poor as well as EWTN in our challenge. You also represent a couple of Baptist universities.
That's right. That's right. There are hundreds of plaintiffs that have asked the Supreme Court for protection. 7 of them were granted cert. What that means is the Supreme Court will give them a day in court so they can hear their case.
What does cert mean for the Little Sisters of the Poor in particular?
This is already a huge win because the government filed a brief before the Supreme Court telling the Supreme Court you should hear some of these cases, but certainly not the Little Sisters case. They did not want to deal with the optics of it. So the fact that the Supreme Court said we're going to hear all 7 petitioners, every single nonprofit that came to us, and we're also going to hear Little Sisters. Now the government is going to have to explain to the court why it's trying to force the Little Sisters to do this.
There are many more nonprofits, religious-based nonprofits, with challenges, including EWTN. Does this have any bearing on the EWTN challenge?
Absolutely. What happens in the Supreme Court affects every single nonprofit that has difficulties or has objections to providing these drugs. But most importantly, Brian, the fate of Little Sisters is the fate of every American. If the government can do this to the Little Sisters, imagine what it can do to each one of us.
Meanwhile, they face these huge fines for not complying. Are they adding up, or are they put on hold?
The Little Sisters already went to the Supreme Court 2 times and requested protections from these fines. And the Supreme Court said, until you get your day in court, these fines, which are over $60 million a year, will not accrue. So until June, these fines do not accrue.
Well, that's certainly good news. Kristina Arriaga, we appreciate you and the Becket Fund. Thanks for being here.
Thank you very much.